Okay. So I want to formally welcome you guys to the Security Compliance Corner. For this month, we're going to be looking at your speaker is Chidimma, and I'm your moderator for today. I'm your moderator for today, and yeah, I would like to introduce I would say he's the founder of this particular security and compliance corner. You're all familiar with him. He's Emmanuel Itoje, a Microsoft MVP, Microsoft Certified Trainers Community Lead. He's also the Nigeria M365 community lead, not just the MCT, not just the Nigerian 365 now, but the Microsoft Certified Trainers Community Lead. He's a Microsoft Certified Educator, a technical architect. Is a solutions architect. Like his own even covers not just M365, Microsoft 365, Azure AI, and security. So when you see him as a community lead, he's not just there, he's highly, I would say he's an expert. He's an expert in all of these fields that I've mentioned. So he's a co-lead of the Microsoft Nigeria Security User Group. You can see all of his certifications distributed on the page, right? He has different, I can't count the number of certifications that Emmanuel has. One thing I normally say is, so people don't believe in certifications. I strongly believe in having the skills, right? Aside from the skills, you need the certifications to back up what you do already know. Now, these certifications too are also a plus. I tell you, because there are some instances, aside from the technical skills or your work experience, some recruiters actually look for specific certifications. Certifications like you see these uh, the identity and access administrator, that's SC 300. You have MS 102, you have AZ 104, you have MS 700. All of these certifications, you even see it has the expert cybersecurity architect certifications. So it's very, very important that while you're also taking these sessions, while you're working in your organization and doing all of the administrative work, please find time, right, to take certifications, even if it's once in the quarter, right? Once in every quarter, just pick one out of the ones you know. Say, okay, this year I'll be taking for maybe MS 700 first quarter, second quarter. It keeps you up to date. It keeps you up to date, and that way aids continuous learning for you. Now, I'll be introducing Chidimma Ugwu. I think Chidimma, thank you for joining us
Uh,
today. Hi.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, hi. Thank you
Sorry,
so much.
sorry for being late. I'm very sorry. My
Mm,
network was actually having an issue, so I was trying to switch from my laptop to the system. So that's
It's
actually why
fine.
there's no camera. So
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
thank you.
It's fine. You're welcome.
All right.
I want to especially
Thank you
thank you
very much.
too. You're welcome. It's not easy to have a session, seriously. It's not easy. Saturdays, I would say, like today, I had a short call with the volunteers for the agent call, and I would say that Saturdays are supposed to be rest days, because when you go to work from Mondays to Fridays, it's expected that you rest on Saturdays. So when you see someone taking her time to come here, it's just it just shows some kind of this thing for us to show up for these sessions, right? It's not easy to sacrifice 2 good hours of your time. Aside from this, let's say 1 hour that I should be taking this course, this session, prior to today, I'm sure she has taken the time to put one or two things together to give us an amazing session. So I want to thank you, Chidima, for always agreeing to show up here. So Chidima, For those that joined the last session, you're familiar. She also took that last class. She's an experienced information security specialist with strong expertise in Microsoft security and compliance. She has guided organizations in safeguarding sensitive data, implementing robust security policies, and balancing protection with productivity. So it's not just about protecting data for organizations. You also have to ensure that these users that you're protecting their data, you're not also hindering productivity, right? So with a passion for empowering people, Chidimma combines technical excellence, problem-solving skills, and a customer-focused approach to delivering secure, practical, and scalable solutions while inspiring others to grow in confidence and achieve their professional goals. Take note, she's not just an expert, she also has this passion, right? Passion to inspire others, the likes of us here, to grow in confidence in our professional goals, in our career goals. That's another thing. You need to be confident and you need to see that you're growing in your career, right? Set career goals. It's very, very important. Now, my humble self, permit me to laugh. Rafiah Abdulsalam, the majority of you do know, I'm a seasoned Microsoft 365 technical support engineer, a Microsoft certified trainer, a just newly awarded Microsoft MVP. And for me, my own expertise is in Exchange Online, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, security and compliance. I actually do support enterprise organizations. I would say when I say across the globe, I support Americans, I support people from the UK, the Arabs, the Indians, that is Canada, Japan. Recently, I started working with the Japanese people. So yeah, just support on a support level. Yeah. So as a technical support engineer, I specialize in resolving complex technical issues. I help organizations optimize their collaboration platforms and also drive user adoption through tailored guidance and scalable solutions. My hands-on experience spans troubleshooting with the PowerShell. I help manage hybrid deployments and also support mission critical workloads. So beyond my technical realm, you all know that I'm a dedicated community leader. I'm committed to making technology accessible to everyone, right? Irrespective of where you are, whether you don't necessarily have to be in Lagos to learn M365. You don't have to be in Abuja, anywhere you are. We've made M365 as our own focused technology accessible, impactful, and transformative for our community members. So whether it's guiding new learners or collaborating with industry peers, I facilitate and foster inclusive learning environment. Thank you all once again for joining this session. And I would just like to quickly introduce our core focus for today, which is sensitivity labels. Chidimma, our speaker, will be letting us, guiding us through what a sensitivity label is. How do you create and publish a sensitivity label? Real-time scenarios of when sensitivity labels can be used. And as an admin, should you create these sensitivity labels or implement the security policies for your organization, and you have issues, how do you troubleshoot these issues? How would you resolve these issues? So without taking much of our time, I'm going to hand over right now to um, Chidimma to take it up from here. Thank you all once again for joining.
Thank you very much, Rafai. I don't know whether I pronounced it very well.
Yeah, it's
Sorry about that.
Rafiah. It's fine. It's fine.
Fear. Okay. Thank you everybody for having me, and welcome to another section of Security and Compliance Corner. Last month we spoke on how sensitivity label, which is information protection, can how businesses and organizations can use them to protect their data outside from people outside and people they don't want to have access to their information or data. But today we are going to dive into the practical aspect of it, which is how to create sensitivity label, and also licenses required to create sensitivity label, and permissions you need as an admin or an information security personnel to access those features. So without wasting any further time, I'll be sharing my screen on on guiding you how to do that as a technical, maybe as a technical support engineer or as an admin in your company. You mustn't be a technical person, but you can also be an admin that supports that your company has given the right to create labels and classify their data for different use. So just give me some minutes. I'm about to share my screen. Okay, sorry. Sorry, just give me a minute. I think I made a mistake and I'm on a different environment.
Yeah, are you able to share your screen?
No, I was fine. I'm on a different environment. So I want to move where my screen is. So just give me a minute. Let me move it to
Okay,
the
it's
other
fine.
environment. Sorry.
It's fine.
Okay, I'll
Okay,
be
I'll be
joining from
joining from
another
another
environment.
environment.
Sorry. So hello everybody. Now I can share my screen from here. Just give me a minute. I don't know if you can see my screen. Sorry, confirm if you can see.
Yes, yes, we
Okay.
can see your screen.
Okay. Okay, today what we'll be having today is sensitivity label, like I said earlier. And today I'll be speaking on how to classify the data, which is what sensitivity label is all about. Sensitivity label is a stamp that you apply to data to classify, state how sensitive it is, and to enforce protection. So you can classify it by just it's not a must, you can encrypt it, but you can classify the data by simply stating, okay, this document or this data is for specific purpose, so that users or your workers will know who to share the information with or who not to share it with, but it's not really encrypted. Anybody can have access to it. But the difference between the encryption part of it is that this time around, you are just classifying it by, okay, this document is for HR department, but it's not encrypted. Anybody can still see it if you send it to the person that is not a HR, that is not in HR department. But so that's what classification is all about. But the encryption, the protection part of it is when you apply encryption that even if you send it to somebody who is not a member of that department, the person will not be able to open the document, even though the person received the document. That's the difference between the protection part of it and the classification part of it. So that's what sensitivity label is used for. You either classify the data or you encrypt it using sensitivity label. So what licenses are required for it? For licenses, you will need Microsoft E5, A5, depending on your tenant. You can also use Business Premium to it gives you access to the feature, which is the sensitivity label. You can once you get this license, your organization can create sensitivity label and apply it to their emails and files and Teams group. Also, currently the AIP Plan 1 and Plan 2 is actually deprecated, so that's currently, but it's still an add-on. You can still add it to Microsoft E5 security or security and compliance license. So that's basically for the license required for sensitivity label. So for permissions, who can create sensitivity label in your organization? The person that can create sensitivity label in your organizations are information protection admin. Sorry, just give me a minute. Okay, who can create a sensitivity label in your organization? We have information protection admin, security and compliance administrator, compliance data administrator, sensitivity label administrator. Those are the people that can create sensitivity labels. So if you're not an admin in your organization, you can, and you're just a user, you can make use of the label if the labels are published to you, but you can't create or make changes to the label. It's only an administrator who has these permissions that can create label and that can apply it or publish it for the organizations. So that's basically what is required for having access to the sensitivity label feature. So now I'm going to go to the admin center to show you how sensitivity labels are being created. So I'm actually already on the Microsoft Admin Center. So I will just simply click on the Microsoft Purview, which will navigate me to the Purview. Oh, sorry, made a mistake. Sorry, I think there's a mistake somewhere here. Sign this out. So initially the account that I used in logging in doesn't have full access, just like what I said. If you're not an administrator, you will not be able to have access to some of the features. So when I logged in with the wrong account, I wasn't seeing most of the features that are listed here. So that's how you know that okay, you don't have the right to create labels or apply them. So now this is where you go to create a sensitivity label. So we'll start by this is where you navigate to the Purview Admin Center, then click on Solutions, then select Information Protection. Then under it, you find your sensitivity labels. So how do you create sensitivity label? You start by you create the sensitivity label. So by clicking on Create a Label, uh, you name the label. Is sometimes you can name it according to the purpose of why you are creating it. If it's for the HR department, you can simply say if it's for classification, you can just put a classify HR or classification HR. So you can simply replace this, put the same name in the display name. These names are also, it helps the users to know the particular label they're supposed to use at any point in time, so that they don't get confused. So if it's for classification, you use this. So this label we are going to create now, we are not going to apply any encryption setting on it. I'm just going to use it to show you how to simply classify your document or your email using that. So here you put description for the users, so that the description helps users to know what the label is for, so that they don't go and apply it on another label that they are supposed to encrypt. So that's also the need for description under sensitivity label. So after that, we click next. Then this sensitivity label scope. So in sensitivity label, you can scope it to your files and documents. You can also scope it to emails and meetings and groups and sites, which is actually grayed out, is for teams. You can use sensitivity, you can apply sensitivity label to your teams. If maybe you don't want informations that are shared in your, if maybe you want some certain people to have access to information shared in Teams group or SharePoint sites. So this is where you also create the sensitivity label for SharePoint sites, Microsoft 365 groups and Teams. So for now, this is for classification. So we are going to just use you can classify, you can apply content marking on your emails and files, which is where that's only where you can apply content marking. For other ones is encryption actually, but for content marking is for emails and files. So that's what content marking is used for. And content marking is more like a watermark on a document. So I don't know whether you've seen a document. On the document you see confidential, a watermark confidential. That's actually a sensitivity label that's been applied to it. So after that, after scoping it to either emails or files, you click next. Then here we have control access. Control access is for encryption. Like I said earlier, you can encrypt or you can simply classify. The apply content marking is for classification. Then here too is for protect teams and chat, just like what I said, that you protect teams and chat. You don't actually mark it, but you protect the teams and chats. It's still more like an encryption. So, but for here, for now, what I'm showing is for content marking, which is classification. After that, I'm going to show how to create a label for encryption. So for content marking, which is simply classifying the document, you click on apply content marking and you click next, and you toggle content marking. You just simply, then you choose whether you want to add a watermark or a header or a footer. So depending on how you want the classification to look like on the document. So if it's for watermark, okay, now because I scoped this to emails and files, you can add watermark to emails. Watermark is for only documents, which is files and documents. Then for header and footer, you can apply that to email. So because this label, I scoped it to emails and files, we are going to use header or footer. But when I scope it only to files and documents, that's when you use watermark. So, okay, let's use header. Next. So here you're going to add the header you want it to appear on the document or on the email anytime this label is being used. So you can either choose whether you want it to appear on the center or on the right or on the left of your document or emails. You can also decide which color that you want to use to mark your content. So I'm going to leave it at black, then on the center. Then I'll save. Next. So here is auto labeling for email. So we're not going to use auto labeling for now, but I will still come back on what auto labeling for files and emails is all about. So for now, I'll just click next. Then here we're not actually applying any encryption or restricting it to anybody. So it's just a content marking that we are creating. So next, then you create the label. So once you finish creating the label, you click done. So now what we are going to do is to publish label. Sometimes some people feel that once they create a label, that their users or can see the label. But actually, creating a label does not mean that uh, your users can see it. If you don't publish the label, your users or anybody can see it on their document or on the email to apply to their content. So what we are going to do is the label we just created, this is where it is. So we are going to click on the three dots and click on publish label. So now you can choose to add either more labels on this uh, policy, label sensitivity label policy we want to create. So we're going to, I'm not adding any more labels to is just this policy is just for classification. So I'm going to click next. So here we have add or remove admin unit. So before you can create admin unit, administrative unit of which is people you want to assign this policy to. So that's what the administrative unit. But here, full directory means you're publishing it to everybody in the organization. You're not selecting any some particular persons or that you want it to publish it to. So we'll click next. Then here, users and group. You can choose either some certain people. Click edit. You can choose either you want to scope it to all users or add specific user. When you click on specific users and group, you're going to prompt you to add users and group that you want this label to appear on their document or on their email. But now we are doing full directory, which is all users and group. So I'm not scoping it to any particular group or users. So here, this is where, because This label is of the highest priority, which is 21. You can choose either here, you can choose either to let users uh, remove the label. For example, since this classification is for HR department and maybe a user or a staff of who is in HR department is creating a document that is not really will I say is not an information that necessarily needs to be classified, and you've already set this label as a default label. Here you can choose if you want your users to remove the label or not. So if you want your users to remove this label, what you do is to prompt them to provide justification on why they want to remove the label. So which means that anytime they want to apply sensitivity label on their document, this label we are creating is going to by default apply to the label, apply to the content. But if the user doesn't want that particular label, and here we are allowing the user to make changes to it because the priority of this label is of the highest label, which means that uh, the label that is of lower priority cannot override it. So which that's where this you requiring your users to provide justification to remove it comes in, so that if they provide the justification, they can now apply it to the particular label they want to apply it to, which is the lower priority label. So here I'm allowing my users to choose to remove this label when they want to use it, so that it doesn't mark all content confidential HR. So that's when you check this. It's very important to check this label when you're creating sensitivity label of highest priority. So here, when you click here, you require your users to apply a label to their emails and documents. Here, anytime your users are actually creating a document or an email, there's always a prompt that lets them know that they are required to apply label to that content, given that okay, that department you want every files and every emails that goes out from that document to any body, that labels must be applied. So you use this to always prompt your users or your staff to mark to mark that document. But most times you can actually be ignored, but it's more like a prompt or a tips that shows up on the sensitivity label anytime they want to save. They will always see you are required to apply label to this content. They always see it, but you can still choose to ignore it. So that's what this is all about. Same thing with fabrics and Power BI content, and also provide users with a link to custom help page, more like to educate users. So when you apply this, it's more like to educate your users on how to use sensitivity labels in your organization. But we're not doing that now. So I'm going to click next. So do I want to make this label a default label? No. But if you want this label to be a default label, you can just apply it. What it means that anytime I'm sending out email, this label must be applied, whether on the document is a default label. Anytime you are sending out email, if you don't change it, this is what is going to apply on the document whenever you're sending emails out. But because I don't want to make it a default label, I'll click none, which means I'm letting my users decide which label they want to apply to their document. I'm not enforcing them to use this label. Next. So here we have apply a default label to emails. No, we are not doing that. We are doing same as documents. We are not applying a default label to the document. I don't know if anybody have question so far on how far we have gone, or should I continue?
Yes, I think we have a question here.
Okay.
Just one question. Yeah, someone is asking that at what point do you use the sensitivity label? And from experience, does it come on request or it's just the IT admin that decides to create one?
Okay, most times it comes on request from the admins, which is your boss, the higher ups, because of how datas are depending on the content or the kind of work you do in your organization. If it's a work that requires the documents in your organization to be protected, most times it's not the admin that actually decide. Is the admin is not the IT, sorry, is the admins, which is the managers, your boss in the company, the owner of the company can decide to like, okay, I want sensitivity label to be applied to all the documents going outside of our organization. So that's when it comes in. It's not just the IT. IT is don't just go and create them. What IT is do is to create them on request from the admins. So I don't know if that's cleared, if that actually cleared your question.
Yeah, I think that answers the question. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Okay. All right. We'll be moving forward. So here it says apply a default label to emails. You can also choose if you want a default label to be applied to all emails going out of your organization. But if you don't want that, if you want your users to have, it's more like giving your users flexibility to choose which label they want to apply to their email. Given that most times, not all emails that are going outside of the organization has to do with uh the organization. For example, I can decide to send an email to a fellow colleague, which is just normal email. So that's where you actually make the label, not to set a default label. That way, you choose to either apply or leave it open so that the person can have access to it or share it with anybody who wants to move the emails to. So here we have inherit label from attachment. So what this means is when we create a sensitivity label, and for example, this label I'm creating is of the highest priority, and if you apply this label to your attachments, which is documents you want to attach to your emails, what this does is that once I check this box, it means that anytime that I'm sending an email and I add an attachment, and that attachment is carrying this sensitivity label, automatically my email will inherit this label. Which means that if my email had, for example, a lower priority label, once I attach this document, it's going to inherit the label that is applied on this attachment. That's what this inherit label from attachment means. But if you don't want it, you can uncheck it. So which means, well, if I check it, anytime somebody attaches any document that has this label on, automatically the email will carry this sensitivity label. And one of the thing about it is that maybe if the document I'm sending out is actually not, maybe the email I'm sending out, I don't want it to be I don't want to apply label on it, but I want the document to have label. That's when it's not I will not advise to use this to actually mark this, because sometimes you can send normal email but the labels are actually protected. The document, which is the attachment, are actually protected, but you don't want the email you're sending out to be protected or labels to be applied to it. So that's when you decide to check this or not. So we're not actually checking it today for now. So next is apply a default label to meetings and calendar events. No, we're not doing that. Apply inheritance between meetings and we're not. So actually this does not matter because this label is not scoped to Teams meeting and calendar events. It's just this label was scoped. If you remember from the beginning, we scoped it to emails and files, not to meetings and calendar or Teams meeting. So I'm going to click next. So also this label is not scoped to Fabrics and Power BI content. So I'm going to click next. So here we are going to name the policy. So I'm going to give it to the same name I gave the label. So I'm going to click submit. So normally it takes 24 hours to publish labels so that it will appear on users application, which what is trying to say that even though we've published this label, is after 24 hours that users, for example, if I go to my email right now and click on new email, then here I will not see the label down here because it takes 24 hours for the label to appear on the applications, which is your Word application, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, and emails. So it takes 24 hours for it to appear here so I can make use of it. So after 24 hours, that's when it is going to appear here for us to make use of. So, but for now, I don't know if I'm going to check if there's any label that have been published here to see if anyone was created for content marking. So we use it and do a test on how it appears on the email. So we're going back to the Purview. So here, this is where you find all the labels you have published, which is here is where we have the email we just published now, which is classification HR. So this is for content marking. So for encryption, I'm going to show us how to create sensitivity label for encryption. Then actually there is already sensitivity label here for encryption. So once I'm going to show you how to create it. But for doing the test, I will just use a random label that have been published to do a test on how to apply that on your emails or your document. So, but for encryption, we'll click on sensitivity label. Then here we can see these labels. They are called top level sensitivity label, which means that they are of the highest level. Then here you can click on when you click on these three dots, you see something they call create sub labels. So you can create labels under a label, which means that it's more like, okay, for example, personal is for personal use. But inside that personal use, you want to have public, okay, the ones you send to people, anybody can have access to. Then you have confidential to someone, like definitely, but it's still for personal use. Then we have for internal, which is for people within your organization, just like what we discussed last session, which is last month, where we have internal, which is for people within your organizations, which means that any document applied that you see that has internal marking on it, it means that you're not supposed to share that with anybody outside of your organization. It means that every document or email marked internal should be within your organization. That the information should not go outside your organization. That's what internal emails or internal means. Then public, it means that you can actually share that with anybody. It's for public purpose. For example, let's just say I created this sensitivity label slide and I want to do a presentation outside, yes, I can apply a public label, which means that anybody outside of my organization will still have access to those documents. That's what public label means. It means that you are giving access to people outside of your organization to have giving people outside of the organization access to your documents or emails that you want to send out. You're sending out emails for public purpose. Then general is actually it's still internal, but it's more like a general information. It's general for anybody. Anybody can use it. Anybody is still almost the same thing as internal. But the general one thing about general is that you can choose to make it general for people, more like for business partners. That's where this general comes in. For example, your company is working with is doing collaboration with another company, and they want people in those companies to have access to some certain documents. They use general. That's when this general sensitivity label comes in. Is for people in your organization and also your partners. That's where general comes in. Then confidential is when it has to do with departments. Okay, I know for some organizations you wouldn't want your payroll for people outside of HR department to have access to your payroll documents, to be able to view what is inside those documents. So that's where confidential comes in, that the files marked confidential strictly for this department. So that's where when I was doing that when I created the sensitivity label, I used classification HR, which is that sensitivity label is for HR departments and for them to use it to classify their documents. That's what it means. So which means that anybody who is not in HR department should not use the label on their content. That's what it means. So for this general is for business partners when you want to draft documents or send emails to partners so that they can have access to some of your document for some of your organization's document that you don't want the public to have access to. So that's where general comes in. Then the confidential, just like what I said, is for basically departments and yes, for department purpose. You want them to these departments should classify their documents so that IT will not have access to documents that are for HR. That's just what confidential is. Then highly confidential is used for executive purpose when you want to apply the highest level of encryption. It's for specific people or group. For example, you can create a group executives. So when you create a group executives, you use highly confidential for documents that has to do with them. So because that's the highest uh label uh, label classification. Yes, that's the highest level, which is highly confidential. Is an encryption and is very restricted to users and groups. So this label highly confidential is used for when you want to apply it on documents that has to do with the executives, the CEOs and the COOs. So that's when this label comes in. I don't know anybody that have any questions so far concerning the labels I've explained.
Okay, seems you want to take questions in between, right?
Yes, so that they don't get
Get
lost.
okay. That's fine. So we have someone asking that does this label speak into the part of you not forwarding emails?
Okay, yes, you can actually choose like the second label I'm going to create. I'm going to show us to either choose where you choose either whether you want your users to forward it. Yes, you can pick into that whether you want it to be forwarded or not. Yes. But I'm going to show us in the next label I'm going to create for that to see how you enable that feature so that that particular label, once it's applied to document, it cannot be forwarded to
Not
anybody
forward.
that is not meant for. Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. So another question that we have here is that what's the behavior of encrypted sensitivity labels with the F3 users? In the sense that how can one also manage a case of encrypted PDF within and outside the organization? Because users sometimes have problem opening encrypted PDF. I think that's a troubleshooting question Emmanuel is asking.
Okay. The reason why some of the users don't have access to encrypted PDF is that when you were creating the sensitivity label, you must have either selected that users must be authenticated. So there's something they call authenticated users, which means that these are users that are in your organization that have to sign in to their Microsoft accounts for them to be able to access it. So if maybe when you were selecting it, this user does not have account with you, the person will not be able to access it. So it will always prompt the person that sign in with your Microsoft account. So that's when you have those kind of issues. So maybe you must have created those, maybe it might not be you or the admin that created the label. When he was creating it, he actually added a permission that states only authenticated users can can open like can sign into documents that these labels are applied to. So that's what happens with that. So, but
Yeah,
for
thank you for that answer.
F3 license, sensitivity label is the same
Mm,
behavior for all licenses. The license is simply for having access to it, having access to
mhm.
being able to create it and apply it to your document, but it does not state the behavior it does not determine the behavior of the sensitivity label. Yes.
Well, as long as you have the right license type,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Mm. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, somebody else is raising his hand or her hands. Uchechukwu, you
Okay.
can ask your question.
Okay, ma. Please, I'm just join class very late. But I don't know, sir, ma, I don't know how you get to these sensitive labels. Could you just add a little more light to it?
Okay, just okay, I'll just show you this sensitivity label is from you can either use purview.microsoft.com, which is here where Microsoft is, purview.microsoft.com to open the Purview admin center. But you must have an administrative right for you to access this admin center. This is an admin center. So if you're not an admin, you can't have access to this portal. And also you have to for this portal you have to have compliance administrator, right, to have access to this portal, or a global admin. Either you're a global administrator or a compliance administrator for you to have access to this portal. But how did I get to this sensitivity label? Here I clicked on when I logged in, I clicked on solutions. Then, like for example, if you click on solutions, you will find information protection here. Once you click it, you now be on this page where you have the sensitivity label. So I don't know if that has answered your question.
Okay, ma. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody?
No,
Okay,
that's all for
Chinedu.
now.
Okay, for now.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Someone is, yeah. You can
Chinedu.
attend to Chinedu. Sorry.
Oh, no, mine is just fine. I just wanted to add up a little bit when the other person asked the question, he got to this center. I just wanted to confirm if he knows, if he has a knows, if he understands admin roles, because if he has a tenant to start with, so that he can know how to navigate to this place. Because prior understanding, having a tenant and understanding the rules help you understand the environment that you're in, just to confirm from him and then just to clarify, but not a question. Thank you very much, Uche.
You're welcome. Okay, Patrick. You have a question? You can go on, Patrick.
My question is, am I audible enough? Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity. My question is this: having created the sensitivity level because I've been following you since I joined, how do we now apply it, or is it already applied?
No, we're getting there. What I'm actually on is creating it. And after creating it, we'll go to
Okay.
testing the labels. So I'm just explaining all about
Ah,
the sensitivity label, how to create it and when to create it, and that's what I'm actually explaining and guiding us to.
ah, all right. No issues. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Joseph. Okay, that's the last one. Joseph, then we will continue.
Okay, thank you so much for the clarification so far. My question is just that aside from the E3, E5 license that you mentioned that gave access to the sensitivity label, do any other subscription or license give access to it aside from the E5?
Yes, there are other labels, other licenses there. We have E3, we have Office 365, Microsoft 365, E3 are different, and Office 365 E3 are two different label licenses. So if you have Office 365 and you have Microsoft 365, you can have access to sensitivity label features, which is E3, E5, business premium. Actually, business
Business.
standard. If you have business standard, you won't have access to sensitivity label. So it starts from business premium, then E3, E5 license. Yes. Then you
Okay,
have compliance security, compliance. If you have compliance license, you have access to it.
okay, that's fine. E1 doesn't have access to it.
No, 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 no.
Okay,
No.
thank you
Yes.
for the clarification. Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay. Okay, Emmanuel, that's the last one. After Emmanuel, we'll continue.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for the session so far. So it's just a follow-up question to question I asked the other time about the PDF. So
Okay.
because you said you mentioned authenticated user that if they as they configured as authenticated user, that might be the reason. But I think most times when you're sending documents out, just as you mentioned that we have the confidential and highly confidential. I, there are other options that we do like those, the one you said you are going to show us, like the forward, do not forward, and
Yes.
encrypt only. So in that kind of situation, when we pick that, we are not picking the authenticated user. So I was not asking that. How can one create a sensitivity label where, most times PDF is like the means of communication within organization and maybe outside of organization too. And most times users create a Word document, encrypt it, and then save it as PDF. So that's where the issue comes when they not send it out or send it within themselves, and then they have issues sometimes opening that document outside of the organization. And from the configuration, authenticated user has not been selected. So I don't know any other way that can be done. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
I'll just answer it quickly. So this is it. Most times, when it comes to PDF, it has to do with the person's let's say the PDF is using, because one thing about sensitivity label is this: if you scope it to files and documents, if the issue is happening with PDF, it's not the label that has the issue. I don't know whether you understand, but it has to do with the PDF. So which sometimes when the users use the label on other document and is working, then it's not the label that has the issue. It has to do with either the PDF version they are using, whether maybe is not updated, but that has to do with Office. That has to do with Office issue, not sensitivity label we are talking about today. I don't know if that clear answers your question. So if the label is working fine on Word, Excel, and the email. The issue is not with the label, but because even the behavior of PDF is same as the document. Because when you apply sensitivity label on document, you have to select permission who you want them to have access to this document. So if on the Word document they select the label and it's prompting them to add permission to people that they want them to have this access. Sometimes if it has to do with when they were if the person is able to open that, what you have to find out if the person who is having issue with opening the PDF can access the same label that is applied to the Word document or Excel. If he can be able to access it, then we know that it's not the label that has the issue. It's actually the document itself, which is the PDF version or the application is using to open the file. So you have to confirm that. All right. All right. Damon.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to quickly support what you just said right now. Regarding the question, someone just asked about PDF. So basically, any labeling you're creating or creating labeling has to do with Microsoft document or Microsoft applications. PDF is Adobe Acrobat, is not Microsoft. So that's why you can actually use those labels in a PDF environment. It's only applicable to Office applications.
All right.
So it's not, yeah, it doesn't have to do with the PDF
The label itself.
version or PDF. PDF is Adobe, which is a different company from Microsoft. So labeling is only applicable to Microsoft applications. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Yeah, those are the applications that you can use your labeling for. Just to add to that for the listeners.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Okay. After Ifeanyi, we'll move on so that we don't waste take a lot of time on questions. Okay, Ifeanyi, you can ask your question. Okay, if you're not there, all right. It seems that Ifeanyi is not
Can
there.
you hear me? Hello?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, I just joined not too long. Please, would you be subsequently, are you going to be creating more labels?
Yes, yes, I will be creating another label.
Okay. That's right. I joined you
Uh,
not too long. Please, I just let you know. Thank you.
all right, welcome. Okay, so we're back on I was explaining when to use highly confidential, and I was saying that you use that with when this document has to do with the executives in your organization. That's when you use highly confidential. When the document you do not want anybody aside from the executives to have access to those documents. Is highly confidential, so that it helps users to know that okay, this document is actually not for us. So that's what this top level labels stands for. But in all these top level labels, you can still create sub labels inside it. So here we also have sub labels for all employees, which means that you can create this highly confidential is an encrypted content, which means that when you use this highly confidential label and apply it to an email and send it to even yourself, but your email, but uh is not in this organization, you are sending it to yourself, you will not be able to open it you yourself, because that's one thing about this highly confidential. It's actually very it just encrypts the document. That's just what it is. Then specified people, these are sub labels that are created under it. So this is what the sub label you can create under it when you want to use highly confidential. So these other ones are just test label. When I was when teaching other classes on sensitivity label. So now we're going to go to creating a label for encryption. The previous one we did was for classification, which means that label, if you apply it to any content or any document, it's not going to encrypt it. The previous one I created is not going to encrypt the document. It's just simply classifying it, which is simply, okay, this document is for HR, this document is for ITs, this document is for administrative unit or for bursary department. That's what just that label is for. You use it for classification. You're not applying encryption. If you give that document that you apply that sensitivity label to somebody who is in IT, the person in IT will still be able to have access to that document. Because why? That label does not encrypt the document. It just simply classifies it where it belongs. That's all the label does. So now we are going to create a label for encryption, which comes in with the person that asks the question where you apply the do not forward. When you don't want your user to forward the document, these labels are applied to. So here we are going to use encrypt. So here we are still leaving it at the highest priority. If you don't want this to have the highest priority, but most times here is always the highest priority that appears. What you do when you don't want it to have the highest priority, I'm going to show you how to lower the priority of this label if you don't want it to be of the highest label priority. So we're going to click next, which is the description. You can add the description that encrypt used for encryption purpose. So you click next. So here, like I said earlier, this encryption, we're not going to, you can still decide to scope it to calendar events and Outlook and Teams here, meetings, which is your meetings. But we're not doing that. So I'm just going to keep it basic, which is emails and files, which is mostly what organizations use it for. So next. So here, if you want to now add encryption, this is where you come to control access. So control access is where it's more like encryption. You are giving people you want to have you want them to have access to it. You want to use this to control who have access to the document and who you don't want them to have access to the particular document. So we click on access control and next. Now this page here we have assign permission now or let users decide. So when you leave this at assign permission now, what it does is it encrypts the document. Your user do not get to decide. So anytime this label is applied, once you set this to assign permission now, it automatically applies. Your user do not get to decide to apply. So once you set it to apply permission now, automatically any email going out of your organization will have this label. Any email, it will apply on the document. And most times, that's when you might send an email out. You not know that there is a label that have been created with assigned permission now, and it has applied to the email, and you send it out, and the person is saying, I cannot access the document or the email that you just sent to me. Most times it's because that label was created using assigned permission now, which is automatically you're applying permission. You don't want your user to decide. You want to be the one in control. You don't want to give your user that flexibility to choose whether they want to apply label or not. No, I want all the documents going out of my organization encrypted. That's what it means. So, but if you keep it, let user assign permission when they apply the label. So you are giving your users option to choose whether they want to apply encryption set label or not. That's what this label is for. So here, the person that was asking about do not forward, this is where you decide to choose do not forward. In Outlook, this is for Outlook. So when you click do not forward, it means that once this email is applied, and you once this label is applied to an email and you send it to somebody, that person you sent it to cannot forward it. But sometimes this is the behavior it is. The person will not be able to forward it. But even if the person forwards it, the person will not have access to the content of the email. The person that is being forwarded to will not have access to the content of the email. So this year you set do not forward or encrypt only. Encrypt only is that it just encrypts the document, but it's not, the person can still forward it to somebody else. That's just what here. So here you decide if you want to just do not forward or encrypt only. So we are using encrypt only. We just want to encrypt the document. So here you can either choose also if you want this label to the behavior of this label, which is encrypt only, to also act on the Word, PowerPoint, Excel. So this is where you do that. So because of letting my user to apply this label, the option that says where the person I was talking about, authenticated users, will not appear, because I'm letting all users have access to choose whether how they want to use this label. But if I want to keep it to, it's just me that will be creating the label, and you don't want your users to decide. Once I click on assign permission now, here, this is where you have the option user access to content expires. So if you want to put it that, okay, once any document that is carrying this label, that it's only going to be accessible for some particular days. After that, users cannot be able to access that document. So this is where you specify how many days you want to keep it, or you want the access to expire. Once that day passes, nobody can have access to that document except you come back and make changes to the document, to this label, and people will continue to have access to the document. So you decide here how many days you come here, you choose how many days or months you want people to have access to the document this label is applied to. But if you don't want that, we're not going to, we keep it at never. So we're not setting any expiring date. So here, which allows offline access. Offline access is you want your users to have access to the document without logging in. For example, where there are some documents that people will share to you, and you will notice that you're not able to access it when you're not logged in. This is where they set the access to. Always, which means that for you to have access to this document, you must log in with your account. And that account has to do with the organization that has that document. So if you don't have account with the organization, and that person who set this policy did not add you one of in this place, this permission, you'll not be able to open the document. So let's say, for example, the organization is creating a document for their partner, and they want to keep it to always that you must have to log in to access the document. This is where they'll add the domains or emails they want them. So if maybe the partner are working with their company is SciTech, so SciTech.com, this is where I'll come and add their domain. So anybody whose email whose email is SciTech.com can actually have login and have access to the document. But if the person's domain is not included in one of these in this place, the person will not be able to have access to that document. So that's also these also can decide. Sometimes we have issue where you send out Excel or Word, and a user is telling you I'm not able to access the document. It keeps prompting me to log in, and I'll log in, I will not be able to have access to it. Sometimes because this person is not included in one of the permissions. This is mostly where they did the configuration. So here we are leaving it to allow offline access always, which means that you don't need to authenticate or log in to have access to the document, but the document is encrypted. So if you send it to somebody who is not meant for, the person will not open it, but you as a person can still open it even when you are offline. So here we click on assign permission. When you want to add groups and people you want them to have access to the You want them to have access to this. So here you say add all users and organizations in your and groups in your organization. You add them. Here, this is where I'm talking about authenticated users. This means that the person have to log in. So this comes in when you set the feature that when you set this feature for allow offline access. Never. You must come here to add these authenticated users. That way, people can log in. You add here people, maybe everybody, authenticated users. Authenticated users are people in your organization. That means that the person must log in. That's what it just means. Person must log in. If the person is not authenticated, he does not log in and is not able to log in, the person cannot have access to the document. The person must have to log in to have access to that log document. That's where you use any authenticated users, which means the person has to have to log in to have access to it. Then here is users and groups. This is where you decide the groups or the users you want them to have access to the document. If maybe you want only, this maybe the document, this sensitivity level you're creating for is for people in HR is making use of it, but they are sending documents to people in account department. So here you can add account group. Account group. So which means that if this document, anybody in account department can have access to this document, but anybody that is not in account department will not have access to documents this label is applied to. So I don't know if you have any question here or that clarifies it. Then here you choose the kind of permission you want them to have. So we have editor. Editor means that they can edit it. So the person you send the document to can read it, copy it, edit it. That's what editor means. Then owner, you can add somebody as an owner. Once you add another person as an owner, which means that the same rights you have in that document, that person has the same rights on that document. That's what this means. The restricted editor means that there are some things he can make changes to. Maybe the person can add some content, but the person will not be able to copy or make some certain changes on the document. The viewer is simply, I just want you to view the document. That's all. You are not making any changes. You don't own it and you're not making any changes to it. You just want the person to be able to view the document. That's all. Here we have custom. Custom is when you decide the kind of rights you want, and just like what I said about the restricted editor, you can choose view rights, edit content, save, print. This is where sometimes you see a document, you're not able to copy it. When you select it, it's not selecting. When you do copy and paste, it's not copying. This is where they made the settings on why you're not able to do all those kind of stuff on that document. You will not, if you want to export it, it will not let you export it or forward it. This is where you make those changes and apply those rights and permissions for that document that you're applying this label to. So, but we're not doing that today. So, but this is where you actually make the changes to. So I'm going to leave this to okay, I've signed now, though it's not going to appear after 24 hours. So, but I'm going to check for a label that I have assigned now. But the previous one, I just recently removed it due to some certain reason. So, but let me keep this to let users assign permission when they, so that this, so once you apply this, you now click next. Here, this is auto labeling. So if you want this label to automatically apply on document, this is where you choose it. Then you add your condition. If you want this label to apply automatically, if the content contains maybe credit card number, this is sensitive info type. Or here we have credential type. Maybe the document is carrying people's account number, PII information. We already know what PII. I don't know if you know what PII is. So if the document is carrying PII information, and you don't want you don't want any document that is carrying those PII to go out of the organization without it being labeled. This is where you create auto labeling for it, which means that as your users, anytime your user create a document and it has PII, automatically this label applies to it, without the user's permission. The user is not even doing anything on it. As the person is saving it, this label is automatically applying to it. That's where this auto labeling comes in. It's mostly for sensitive info type, which is PII, routing number. This is where you see. Then you can also create an SIT depending on your organization. Then here, trainable classifier. Trainable classifier has to do with maybe content that is not really PII. For example, employee offer letter, stuff like that. Carrying that stuff like that is not trainable classifier. This is what trainable classifier does. So anytime, but you have to like create a trainable classifier for that before you come here to do apply create sensitivity label for it. But we're not going into that today. So, but we're not doing auto labeling too. So we're going to click next. So here we're not actually doing anything at all. Here we'll click next. Then we'll review the settings, what we created. We scoped it to files and other documents and emails. Then the description is for encryption purpose, access control. Yes, there's an access control and there's no content marking on it. And there's no auto labeling for files and email on it. It's just for encryption purpose. So we create label. Then we click done. So just like the way we went to go and publish the other label, we'll click here. So now this is where I spoke about if you want this label to not be of the highest priority. So the highest priority is the highest number. The lowest priority is the lowest number. So if I don't want it to have the highest priority, I'll click on this three dot and move it up. If I keep moving it up, that means I'm reducing the priority of this label. So as you keep moving up, as you can see here, it says lowest priority. If I click here, it will go to 0. But if I click move up, it will go above this classification HR, which means that the classification HR will end up being the highest priority. So this is where you can also click assign priority. Then you just simply do that and apply it. Then this label will move up to where the number where you specified. So that's where you make changes to. For example, if I click move up, so now we can see the encrypt HR here is no longer the highest priority. Now the classification HR is now the highest priority. So that's how you make changes to label priority. Maybe if you want to lower a label priority to not be the highest priority, just come here and move it up to the number where you want it. Then the priority reduces. The lower the label, I think the more you are reducing the priority of the label, the more you are kind of reducing how the application of it, because sometimes the highest label will automatically override the lowest label. That's just when you set some certain policy when it comes to this sensitivity label. So after that, okay, now I'm going to show us how to still the same way we publish the other label. We publish this label. We click on publish for those that were not when we did the publishing. So you click on next. We're not adding any more, but here if you want to add more, you can add more many label to one policy. So when you click on personal, you can add many labels to one policy. Yes, you can do that if you want, but we're not doing that. So next, then here, just like what I said, you can choose the admin unit you want to apply it to. If you want to give it, you can choose, but here we are doing full directory, which means it's for all users for all our documents, emails, and users. So all units. So here you can select users and groups. You want to specify if you want this label to appear in some people's email, not everybody's email. You come here, click edit, and click on specify users and group. Include users and group you want it to be applied to. Here, when we click on it, you have users. Maybe I want this label to only apply, to only show up in Chimobi's email. Or so when I click on him and click done, it means that this label I've created, the only person that have visibility to it is Chimobi. That can use it is Chimobi. That's what it means. But we're not doing that. So next, we click next. Here, like I said, you can justify, give, but this is because we have moved this to the lowest priority, and we have decided that let users, we will still put this to let users decide, justify, provide justification. Now, this is why this is important. For example, let me give why it's important to always toggle this. For example, let's just say an admin that is working with your organization creates a sensitivity label of the highest priority and does not toggle this and applies label to some content, and the person resigns and his account is no longer active in your organization. Nobody has access to that account, and nobody has access to the label. Why this is important is so that any document this person, for example, it's not even the admins, for example, let's just say this label was, if you don't check this and I apply this label to a document and I resign, any label, any document that is carrying that label, nobody can make changes to it. Because why? Maybe under IT admin comes in and want to change the label of that document. This is where you let people change the label to documents. If you don't toggle it, it's not going to change if that label is of the highest priority. So when you're setting a highest priority label, always check this box. Should in case if you are resigning, so that people that are in the organization can have the access to that document and make and change the label. That's because I've had an issue with a user or an organization that have the same issue. So I made them understood that when the person applied the label, so we found out that this was not toggled. So it was when we now came here, we toggled it, that the user was able to make changes to that document. I explained to the person that the reason why you're not able to change the label is because when the user created this label, he did not check this box. So which means he did not check the box to allow users who have access to that document to make changes to the label. So that's what happens. So it's always good to check this box so that other users can change, who has the same access like you, can change the label of a document. If not, most times once that label is applied, nobody can make changes of it. And maybe if you have created the label to apply to some specific persons and you now leave and those people have left, it needs to be changed to the people that are currently in the organization. That's why this needs to always be checked when you're setting those kind of labels, especially encrypted when you're setting encryption label. So we click next. So here I said also require users to always, this is more like prompting your user to, prompting your user to apply, to require them to apply this label. It will always prompt them. You are required to, anytime they are trying to save, you are required, and they not apply label, it will keep prompting them. You are required to apply. There is a pop-up on the screen that will say you are required to apply label on this document. You are required to apply label to this email. It always pop up on their screen when they are trying to like save or send out email. Either save the document or send the email out. The information will always pop up to require them to apply label. So we click next. So do you want to set this as a default label, which means that automatically once you create this and clicks default label, what it means that automatically any email or document somebody is doing in your organization, and because this label is scoped to all users, as the person is saving it, the person might not even pay attention that there's a label applying to it. And the person now saves it and now find out that, oh, it's encrypted. The person is wondering how I did not apply label. How is this document encrypted? It's because there's a default label that's applied to it. So that's how this all those stuff come about. When somebody is not apply a label to document, and somebody is telling you, this document is encrypted, you're like, no, I did not apply sensitivity label on it. This is what happens because there is a default label that has been created by organization to always apply to any document somebody forgets to apply label on. So any document. So maybe for example, the label is basically maybe your organization has decided that if any document or email going out of the organization must be encrypted, they set default label. It's just what happens. But if you don't want that, you click none, which means that the emails and the document will not have any label, that the user must have to click on apply label for labels to apply in the email and in the document. So we go back and click next. Then same as documents, we do that. Require users to apply a label. It will prompt them to do that. Inherit label from attachment. Since this label, it takes 24 hours, so we'll not be able to do all those ones here. So, but I've explained what this means. For people that were not around when I explained it, this simply means that if your attachment is carrying the highest priority, which is currently 22, and the label applied to that document, which is Word or Excel, is carrying the highest priority label, which is 22, and you're attaching that document to an email you're sending, and that email, the label that is on that email is lower priority, automatically that email will inherit the label that is in this attachment, which is the email will be of highest priority with the document anytime you check this. So that's what it means. But if you don't want your emails, if you want your emails to have different label from the document, you don't check it. You leave it as it is. So that, okay, the only thing that has the encrypted label is your document, but your email is open for everybody. It's just what it is. But if you toggle this, if you check this, once a user is sending out email and he has this label applied to the document, automatically the email itself will be encrypted just like the document. That's what it is. So we click next. Yeah, do we want to set this as default for meetings? No. Then apply inheritance between, we not scope it to Teams meeting and Actifat. So there's no really anything that is going to affect. So we not scope it to it. So same as Fabrics and Power BI content, we not scope it to it. So here you give it a name, encrypt. So we do next. So after creating it, we do reviewing the policy, we submit it. So now we click done. So now we've created and published the label. This is where you see the label that we've published. So this is where you see the label we've published. So here, the priority here is 13, which is of the highest priority. If I don't want this to have the higher priority, I just like what I showed you when you're creating the label, you just move it up. Oh, so that's just what it is. So now we're going to do a test. Let me check for a published label that has encrypt and classification so that we can use it and do a test, because the ones I created today, it takes 24 hours for it to appear on the application. So just give me a minute. Let me check the ones. Yeah. Okay. Okay, these have access control. So let's go to emails. So now when I was creating the sensitivity label, there was no default label. So that's why there's no label appearing here. If there was a default label, for example, if internal emails was configured as a default label, automatically, once I open this create new, these internal emails will appear here. Then I will now have to come and change it. So the policy, all these labels were created for me for users to make changes to it. Previously, text for emails was created as a default email. So which means that any email or files you send out was actually carrying this text for email automatic, and is of the highly confidential, which is encryption. So once we apply this automatically, this message cannot, because the recipient is missing. So I've not added it. So let's just say I'm sending it to, just give me a minute. Okay. Let me send it to QA. So now I've applied. So I've applied the encryption. This is for encryption. So if I send out an email, a test email to this person, the email is going to come as encrypted. So now this is how a sensitivity label behaves. When you apply a sensitivity label and you send it to a user who is using Outlook, which is Microsoft email provider, which is Microsoft, they are the email provider, it's not going to come in locked. The person will be able to open it, but there's a lock sign that will come beside it showing that this is an encrypted email. But if you send this email to somebody who is outside of your organization and the person is not using Outlook, maybe Gmail or any other email provider, it's going to come in locked, and it will require the person to add to put in OTP, which is one-time password, to open the email. So we are going to test with the Outlook and with the Gmail. Also, for the document, I'm going to also show us on the document where it appears when you want to send sensitivity files using document. Let me open a Word document. Any question while we are doing that?
No, none for now.
Okay. But I don't know if we understood what so far what I've done.
Yeah, well explained, Chidimma.
All right, thank you very much for that. I don't know, the Word document is not opening. But okay, let's just use email. I think I'll find, and okay. So now we will do a test to QA, which is quality assurance, test email. So I'm going to log into the user. Sorry. Okay, let me look for another user. I think I've forgotten the password for this. I think I've forgotten the password for this. So let me resend this email to some other person. Okay. So we're going to choose the label. So the reason why now, this explains why most organizations, I almost forgot now to apply this label. I almost forgot that, okay, I'm supposed to apply label. So that's the reason why organizations always have default label that is always on the email, because they know that you can't trust your users to always remember to apply label. It's just what it is. You can't just assume that my users can, they will always remember to apply label. Sometimes we forget to apply label. So those require your user that pops up is what guides the user, oh, I'm supposed to apply label when sending this email. So they don't forget, or there's always a default label that applies here, internal, or depending on which one. So, but there's none on this, so I have to decide which one I want to apply. Okay, now the classification, it didn't take up to 24 hours. So that classification has applied, the one we created initially. So here we can see the marking. So this is not encrypted, it's just marked this email, classification HR, which means that this email is for HR. Is marking, it doesn't, it's not encrypted, it just marked it. So that's what it means. So it's just a marking. But when we change this to the ones that will not apply classification on, which is test for, so now you said where I said require users. So here I'll provide just previous reason no longer apply, change. It will now require me to change it. So now it has changed. But if I not toggle that box now, as that classification just applied, it will not let me change it unless I have to go and create new one and change and apply a different label to it. So that's just what it is. So it's always good to like check that box so that users can actually give the users flexibility of changing labels they want to apply to their email. So now I'm going to send this out now. Sorry, let me, I think this prompted me to authenticate. So now this is the email that I sent from HR to this my other email. So now, like I said, here, because this is Outlook to Outlook, which is Microsoft email provide, which is for it belongs to Microsoft. That's why it's not prompting me to put in a one-time pass code. But but there is a lock sign beside the email showing that this email is encrypted, which means that it's only me that can see the content of this email. If I send it to somebody else, the person is not going to see the email. Because why? It's encrypted. It's only sent to me, encrypted. So the person will not be able to have access to it. An encrypted email. So because of I'm using Outlook, just like that's why it's not prompting me for a one-time passcode. So the reason why some emails are sent to you and is requiring you to put in a one-time passcode is because the email provider is different from the one you are using. So if you are using Gmail, it will prompt you for a one-time passcode. If you are using any email provider that is not Microsoft, which is outlook.com, it's going to prompt you to put in your one-time passcode. That's just when it comes to sensitivity label behavior, when you're using it to apply label. Then for document, I don't know why this. So this is how it behaves with the document. So let's test for Gmail. Okay, I don't know if, okay, I'm just going to share the second screen. Just give me a minute. I want to do a test with Gmail, so we'll see how it behaves on Gmail. So that's it for how sensitivity label behave. I don't know if anybody have questions so far while we are still doing tests, and maybe then we can now ask other troubleshooting questions. Hello, can you hear me? Do we have any questions so far?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you. So does anyone have a question to ask? You can please drop that in the chat box. Okay, I think they already asked all of the questions while you were presenting.
Okay. Okay, we are going to also do a test to see how we apply sensitivity label to our document. So just let me click on this. Don't know why this Word document is not playing.
You want to try with the desktop app?
Okay, let me try. Okay, let me log in with the desktop app. My screen is hanging. Okay, I'm going to share my other screen so that because it seems that I don't know, this one is. Just give me a minute. I'll stop sharing now. I will share the second screen. Okay, I don't know if we can see the other screen. Can we see it?
Yes, we can see your other screen.
Okay, here. Okay, this is where sensitivity label appears for document. So now if I click on this, so this is what I mean by content marking. It has marked this because when we set it, we set it to appear on the center of the document. So when I type this, when I type the document and I want to save it, this is the label that will appear on it anytime anybody opens it. Is this the label that is going to appear on it? And if the person is within the organization, he wants to make changes to the label, the person will have to like add because I clicked for people to let user justify why they want to make changes to the label that are applied. So the person can simply just when he clicks on it, it just gives the justification, just like what I did with the email, where it states, okay, this label is no longer required. Then I change it. That's how you change the sensitivity label for document, just the same as email. They basically behave the same way. So if I click on document and change this now, this is for document, it has required me previous label no longer apply, or I can give more reason why, depending. So I can just click I no longer apply, change, then it will change. There's no longer the label here it had content margin. So now it's just a public label which is showing here public. So that's how sensitivity label for document behaves. So I did not set any sensitivity label for permissions. So because the one that I did that has not populated, so we'll not be able to do that today. So that's basically for how to create sensitivity label and apply it to your document and emails. So that's it for now. I don't know if anybody have more questions, then we can any troubleshooting questions.
Thank you so much, Chidimma, for that wonderful presentation, well detailed. I think we've been able to cover how to create sensitivity labels and how to publish those labels and practical instances. Yeah, I think one last question. I think this one is just Joseph is asking that, assuming you're to apply a sensitivity label to a particular document, is there a way to attach the document during the policy implementation? That's at the point of creating that policy, or once you apply the label, it automatically applies to the document or the email.
Sorry, just hold on. Let me. Yes, if the policy you are creating has to do with attachment, the label, yes, the document itself is carrying the label. So the policy itself, which is a document, yes, is labeled. But depending on how you are creating the policy, I don't know what you mean by creating policy, but if you are sending the policy out in email form, yes, the emails that are carrying those policy will inherit the label from that document. It has to do with the email form. If it's just normal policy you're creating for a document that you want to share with people in your organization, yes, the document carrying that policy is labeled. Yes.
Automatically. Thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you so much for your time. I think we've come to the end of this session, but just before we let you go, I know some persons had questions. If it's your first time of joining, it's important that we know. Someone had raised that where he asked, does this person have a test environment, right? So you
Yes.
all have a test account that you're able to sign into the global, sign into a Microsoft 365 tenant, and you have the global admin or even the compliance admin role to be able to practice this on your own, right? So we have what we normally do is if it's your first time of joining, that would mean that you don't have an account to reproduce all of these demos on your own. So we do have the security compliance, I think security WhatsApp group. We have the Nigerian M365 community. You can join in using the link I just shared. You can introduce yourself or possibly just go ahead and ask that you need a test account to be created for you. Oyimaf, if you're still on the call, can you share the security WhatsApp group link in the chat for people to join in so they can ask their questions? If there's anything if anything that is still not clear to you, or while
I'll
you're
do that.
taking your demo, you have some questions, please feel
Yes.
free to drop your questions in the WhatsApp group.
Yes.
Chidimma is in all
Yes,
the
I'm
groups, I
also,
want to
yes.
believe. So
Yes, I'm
she would
there.
always give you that audience, right? Ask for your test tenant accounts to be created and ask your questions. We have that environment for you to run this demo. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining, and we look forward to having you in our next session, right?
Yes, which is next month. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for
That
joining
will be
and
next
for,
month.
yes. Thank you very much and do have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, thank you too for your time.
You too. You too. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Have
Sure.
a wonderful weekend.
You too. Bye for now.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you all. Thank you, Ma.
You're very much welcome. You're very much welcome.